Got it. Recording started.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2022 and our first official Weatherization Trainers Consortium monthly call. The kind of main event of today's call is going to be what I have traditionally been doing in December, but it's basically I want to get your input and feedback on what you want to be talking about over the coming calendar year. That really helps when planning the calls on a monthly basis and figuring out people to come speak. So I hope that we can figure out all your audio issues. But before we do that, we have our regular monthly updates from our regular network partners. So we'll just jump right into that. I'm going to start with NASCAST first, Jonathan, and then Amy at NCAP, you'll be up next. You're on deck.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. So for the NASCAST updates, we have our winter training conference coming up. It will be virtual. It's February 28th through the 3rd of March. And the WAP sessions will include electrification, managing multiple funds, expanding WAP outreach and engagement, a technical peer exchange with our nearest and dearest at Energy Out West, and DOE federal perspectives and the DOE Q&A. As usual. We will also be hosting a webinar on Thursday to assist folks with their 2022 annual grant guidance and applications. We also will have two working groups going forward this year. One is on LIHEAP and weatherization and discussing strategies for spending additional LIHEAP and WAP funds from recent legislation, share best practices on LIHEAP transfers, review ways to better align LIHEAP program flexibilities and priorities as determined by the group. And the other working group will be weatherization readiness, and we'll deliver recommendations on the implementation of the new weatherization readiness funding and discuss deferral tracking and reporting and other priorities as determined by the group. So if you have any interest in joining either of those working groups, please reach out to me. We are currently, we have a survey out to collect and aggregate questions from the network about the new grant opportunities. That survey link will be in the notes when Kelly sends those out, or I can send it to you if you want to reach out to me. It was also in our e-news last time around. That survey is open through January 12th. And just a couple important dates that are coming up. E&I concept papers are due the 20th of this month. The full application for E&I is due February 28th. State plan due dates, February 10th for April 1 grantees and May 3rd for 7-1 grantees. We'll have our quarterly webinar coming up. And just so that you're all aware, these are for our members. We used to call them the regional calls, but this will be on February 3rd. All the WPMs and FOAs and memos are on our website in case you missed any of those. And the annual funding survey is available to members on our website. And I think that does it for me, unless anyone has any questions.
Not seeing any, and I did drop some of the links to the conference and the survey into the chat. So if anyone's very eager and doesn't want to wait for the notes to come out.
And feel free to reach out to me. I realized that I was reading that as fast as I possibly could because I didn't want to take up all the time.
That was quite a lot. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, next up, Amy from NCAP. Do you want to provide some quick updates?
Sure. So like NASCASP, we're preparing for our MLTC conference, which is February 2nd through the 4th. We're going to have an energy track as usual. The standard content, I always have to look at my paper. I should have this memorized by now. We'll have the, federal partners update, the DOE session talking about all of the exciting new developments. We have recently reached out to ask IREC if they'd like to do a session because we had one opening that wasn't there before. We've actually added another session. Then the ones that I know for sure we're having are understanding pay-as-you-save energy loan programs with the National Consumer Law Center, electrification and fuel switching, which sounds similar to the one that Jonathan described, which is going to be with ACEEE, Oak Ridge, and AEA and the Indiana Community Action Association, and then maximizing weatherization funds in Public Utility Commission proceedings, which is kind of a perennial offering that we have, but we have two interesting states to talk about, Michigan and Missouri. And then lastly, weatherization and youth workforce development, a whole community approach, which is with CETA and Urban Efficiency Group on their Green Generation Initiative. The other exciting thing that's happening in NCAP world is the launch of our energy or climate change task force through our board. I believe I just got word internally that they're going to call it the Climate Change Task Force. So I have been spending a lot of time interviewing prospective members of that task force and sending out a lot of emails to a lot of groups. So if anyone has any questions about that, you can certainly email me. Some of the people on the call today probably are already aware of it. And other than that, regular newsletter, and we did, as I said on the call, some of you were on a call with me yesterday, we did launch a Twitter feed. I'm still working on getting one tweet out a day for NCAP Energy. That is, I'll put that in the chat. I'm not a Twitter expert. I didn't even have a personal Twitter account until I started at this job. So this is really the epitome of teaching an old dog new tricks. And that's
I think
it for
saying
me.
you're not a Twitter expert is it's in the plus column of human beings.
Yeah.
But good, great. Those are great updates. It sounds like a lot of really good sessions at the conference. Do you want to put the link to the conference page in the chat too, in case anyone wants to look up anything?
Let me get that up. And then one thing that I have for this particular group, I'm always looking for more ideas for newsletter articles that have to do with the technical aspects of the weatherization program, because I would like to get more, like the piece that we did on the interior low E storm windows. I'd like to get more content like that that's more of interest to weatherization folks on the ground. Alas, I'm not an expert in that kind of thing, so I rely on this, like groups like this, and especially the listserv where people are talking about stuff. And one thing that I'm particularly interested in is a lot of the talk around wood stoves. They just sound interesting to me, and I think I didn't realize that there was such a niche for working with wood stoves in weatherization. So if anyone has some good wood stove stories or other types of stories that you'd like to share, by all means, let me know. Please do not tweet at me though, because I don't know how to respond to that yet. That's it for me.
Okay, thanks. Next up, Lynn from BPI, do you want to go? And then Chuck from NREL, you'll be on deck. And then LJ, I'll let IREC kind of back clean up before me and Caleb take over.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lynn from BPI.
Lynn.
Hi. Happy New Year to everyone. I just wanted to do a quick overview for an update for BPI pertaining to the Site Supervisor Certificate Program. I'm sure most of you had seen the announcement that had gone out a couple of weeks ago pertaining to our national launch of the program. The Site Supervisor was developed at the request of efficiency programs and contractors, and it's a credential showing proficiency in building science principles and necessary knowledge to supervise the quality installation of residential energy efficiency improvements. If you would like more detailed information, if you go to our website and select certificates at the top menu, you can take a look at like the scheme handbook, which can provide more detailed information about the knowledge that's needed and how to go about obtaining the certificate. But just to give you a quick overview, the certificate program, you have to fill out an application before you can actually sit for the exam. And there are prerequisites that are required, which include work experience, training, certifications. Once they're approved, a person can select how they want to take the exam and the training, as there are like multiple options. So any BPI test centers too have different pricing than what's been rolled out nationally. So if anybody is interested, they can absolutely reach out to me directly, and I can just go over that information with them. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly. My email I can put in the chat as well.
Great, thanks,
Yep.
Lynn.
Thank
I see
you.
one question about wood stoves. Jeff, thank you for following up about that. I can't remember if the checklist got updated, but I know he had kind of I think he did, like an inspection checklist and a presentation that I sent around with the notes, but I'll double check after this call. Does anyone have any questions for BPI or Lynn about, BPI Lynn, that's your new nickname, about the site supervisor certificate and how it relates to kind of the stuff we do or the stuff you do as a training entity? Okay, seeing none, I thought that would be a really hot topic. I'm rather surprised. Maybe everyone, I know yesterday was my first day at work after I took 2 weeks off around the holidays, and I felt like I was waking up from like a 2-week nap. So maybe I'm not the only one feeling a little just happy to be here. Okay, then
am
if
I
no one
the only one that feels like I'm not sure I'm actually here? Yeah, I'm having a really hard time getting out of vacation mode as well.
Yeah, time means nothing anymore, and yeah, yes, you are not the only one.
Is it too late to ask a question about the site supervisor?
Yep, you missed your chance. No, I'm totally joking. Go ahead. Was that Pete?
This is Pete. Hi.
Yeah, hi.
From SIA. I had a couple of the other supervisors ask me if it would be beneficial for our staff and supervisors to pursue the site supervisor, even though we are not on site. They kind of suggested that as QCIs and doing WIPs, if that would be beneficial and worthwhile for us and justifiable for us to obtain that.
Well, I mean, I'm going to let John answer that because I'm not really sure what you do as far as, like, I know the New York State program is requiring anyone that obtains this certificate to be on the job site for a certain percentage of how long the job takes to do. So depending on what your program or what it is that you're specifically doing, I know you just said you're not in the field.
Well, at times we are, and we do perform WIPs. So work in progress, we do visit sites.
Right. Yeah, so this is John Jones. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is really a certificate for those people that are going to be monitoring work that's in progress. Not necessarily a crew leader level of proficiency, but somewhere between a crew leader and an installer, somebody that's making sure that the installations are going properly, making sure that any customer needs are addressed on site. So, and having staff, knowing that that's, part of the process and what is actually required would help out, right? It's just like, everybody takes OSHA training. Not everybody's in the field using the OSHA training, but everybody has it, right? So it's similar to that, where it gives people, whether you're on site or people that are overseeing people that are on site, the knowledge of what's expected and what should be watched over. And this is just a knowledge certificate. There's no hands-on exam for this. This is all online.
Okay. So if someone already has a QCI, would the QCI already cover that, do you believe? Or do you think that this part would be...
So a lot of the job task analysis and knowledge and skills and abilities came from the crew leader. So a good portion of it actually. And so if you can think about what, where that would fit within the scope of a QCI, you know, I mean, QCIs, yes, they do go in and look at the project afterwards, but, you know, they may be brought in at the in-process work and making sure that they understand everything that goes on in a daily work site, right? And so that's what this really covers, is that ongoing in-process work. So, you know, and like I said, it was partial out of the crew leader job task analysis.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you both for the clarification too. And I think the tie-in with the crew leader JTA is really, I would hope, interesting to this group, the training providers, because it seems like a good opportunity to look at the curriculum you already have for crew leader and see, I don't know if there are opportunities there to do kind of an add-on of, well, you're taking this crew leader training, and then you also will be ready to do this BPI certificate, which is almost like a stepping stone to the full crew leader thing. I don't know what that would look like, but yeah, thanks for bringing that up, John, that tie-in with resources that this group might already be more familiar with.
Absolutely.
So next up, Chuck Kernick from NREL. What do you got for us?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thanks. Yeah, I've got a couple of updates here. So this year we are starting the energy auditor revision process. We've chosen a
Didn't we just finish that yesterday? I'm sorry.
I know, time flies when you're having fun, Kelly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're starting it again. We do that every 5 years. And so we've selected a scheme committee. There may be some of you on this call that are even on that scheme committee. And we will be having an in-person meeting in March, April timeframe. And so if any of you in your day-to-day activities of training energy auditors and QCI, if you've seen anything in there that you feel like could use an update just based on what we've gone through the last couple of years, or anything else you've seen like that, we can bring that up. We can start to keep track of a list of things that we can bring up with the scheme committee. So if you have anything, you can email me at, maybe Kelly, you can send out my email address in the notes, chuck.kernick, that's Kurnik, at nrel.gov, if you've got anything, and we can get that into, bring that up with for discussion with the scheme committee. And then a couple of SWS updates. For the 2020 SWS, we will be adding export functionality, and we expect that to be available in the next couple months or so. And then towards the end of this calendar year, we will be bringing to an end of life the 2017 SWS. So right now we have, that's still up on the web, and it's old format. We will be creating PDFs of the different housing types for the 2017 SWS, making those available on the current 2020 SWS website, and then end-of-lifing the online tool for 2017. We will be announcing that, and so just you can pay attention, and it should mostly, I think, just be transparent, because as long as you can, the 2017 SWS, right now we still need to keep those active for the exams, the exams that are still based on 2017 SWS. But then as we're updating Energy Auditor and QCI, we'll be basing those on the 2020 SWS, and then the 2017 can go away. So those are my updates. Does anyone have any questions?
I have two questions, Chuck, that I hope are not just mine alone, but others are thinking of them. So one, do I have to use the term end-of-lifing in the notes, or can I say decommissioning?
You can say decommissioning. Yeah.
Thank you. That sounds very, a little tragic to me. So decommissioning, will will the 2017 version of the SWS be available as like an exported spreadsheet anymore? Like, are you just ending the website, the interactive piece, or is it going to be poof gone?
No, so we'll be ending the interactive website piece, the online web tool, I think, as we refer to it. But then they'll all be available as PDF documents. So we'll export everything, create PDF documents of the 2017 SWS, and then those will still be available on the 2020 site. We'll have links to those and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
searchable PDFs, so you can find whatever you need in there.
You have a very Hindu view of end of life. It will live on.
It will live on. Yes,
okay.
I guess the web piece is the only piece that we're decommissioning. It's but the information will all remain. It's just a download, just like
Okay.
Great. I'd like to ask a clarifying question. Do
go ahead.
people actively use the 2017 SWS resources, or is that to say that not all of them are being replaced by were replaced by 2020 versions?
Yeah, so right now we had, as we were, and so the reason that this is all being motivated is that DOE, the big DOE, not just WAP, is updating their content management system. And so we would have to do a very expensive migration process to get the 2017 SWS to keep it in that. And so we just decided that we're just going to turn this into a PDF. So right now, the exams for Energy Auditor and QCI do reference the 2017 SWS. We worked with IREC to do a crosswalk of of how many exam questions referenced it, the 2017 SWS, and that too was going to be a pretty expensive process to change those exam questions. And we are right now in the revision process so we'll be revising the, part of the revision process for Energy Auditor and Quality Control Inspector is that we're creating a new exam. And so we'll be creating those new exam questions based on the 2020 SWS. So right now we're in kind of one of those weird transition periods where 2017 is still needed primarily for the exams. But once we get those exams updated, then we think it will no longer be needed, but will still be available as PDFs.
Thank you.
So, Amy, does that make sense? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Okay, anything else? All right, that's all I got. Thanks, everyone.
Great, thanks, Chuck. Oh, we did get one more question in the chat, which I'm not sure you addressed. When do you expect the exams to kind of transition to the new versions, like roll out the new ones?
Yeah, so we start the revision process. We're starting it now, kind of this spring, and last revision process, it took about 2 years, essentially from the spring, for the new exams to be released, and so we're anticipating a similar timeline because we'll be doing late this year we'll be kind of starting the item writing process, and then we've got to do all of the piloting and that sort of thing, and so it'll be right about 2 years.
Okay.
From now, kind of spring of 2024.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Then one more. So we're training to the current SWS, as that's what programs are following, but candidates are getting tested on the old SWS. Yeah, that's always a thing. I think, yeah, we can talk about this offline. I know this is kind of an ongoing thing. I think in this last round of SWS updates, the biggest thing is like the reference number got updated, the actual standards. And I mean, Caleb could speak to this better than most. He worked really closely on those updates. But yeah, Suzanne, that's part of having all these different moving pieces all the time.
Yeah, and so what we're trying to do, we've been working with DOE to try to get all of these things on kind of this same 5-year schedule. And so, since we did this last update of the SWS, that was a big step. And so we don't anticipate a lot of big changes since we've done this most recent update, because that really just kind of that really streamlined things quite a bit. So, I feel like the last couple of changes, the last revision process for the energy auditor and this most recent revision process of the SWS have really kind of streamlined things quite a bit. So hopefully not big changes in the future.
Yeah, I think with these kind of things, it's the first 5 or 10 years that you see the most changes. So hopefully that has mainly settled down just as we found like where they fit. Rebecca had a comment, not to put you on the spot, Rebecca, but the SWS resource in the exam changed. So that's inconsistent for the test takers. I was wondering if you could say a little more about that, because that seems like something that we as a group, we could address with between DOE and NREL and BPI. That seems like something we could fix.
It's just that originally the BPI resource portal used to take candidates to essentially a web page document that was the entire SWS in one document, and now it takes them to the legacy site. So they end up searching the web quite a bit more in the exam rather than being taken to this limited document. And there was a while there where they didn't have any kind of resource. It was kind of just left floating in the air. So I, as a proctor, was still giving people the old resource and giving them that option. But I'm not sure how other proctors have been handling it, to be totally honest.
Anyone have anything? I'm coming up on 3 years since I haven't taken the written exam since the pilot, so 2014. So yeah, I think I took it in the scenario you're talking about, and I'm not a proctor, so I haven't seen what people are dealing with now.
And there are some HTML references, and maybe Rebecca, that might be what you're talking about. There's some HTML pages that have, I think, for each housing type, and I think that's for the 2017. And so those links are what you're talking about. I'd have to. I don't know that they're publicly available, so I'd have to go and search for those. But I could get them to this group, or to you at least.
I just dropped it into the chat. It's the one that had been available for the longest time, especially during the QCI exam. It's critical having access to it. And so now it just takes you to the legacy site. And so people end up searching on there. And if they search off of there, sometimes they end up on the current site, which can really confuse them because, of course, none of the numbers line up. And it just makes things a little bit messy in the QCI exams. That's really the biggest issue that I've seen.
Yeah. And these are, so I think actually if you change the 1, it might even be if you change the 1 to a 2, you get to another, you might get to another housing type.
Yeah, the Q was during the exam, they were only supposed to have access to the single family specs.
Oh, got it. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. So, so Lynn and John, I guess I don't see any reason why you guys couldn't continue to link to these sites in the resource section. So if you need any help with getting the correct URL, we can help with that. Just reach out to me, outside of this meeting, and we'll make sure that you have everything you need.
I think
Okay,
my
good.
biggest concern was just making sure that it was something that was accessible to all of the candidates universally,
Mhm.
rather than
Right.
just like, the handful that happen to take it with me, or if there are other proctors who are conscious to the shift.
Mhm.
That's really
Right.
all. But anyway, that's all.
Yeah, it's valid. I mean, it's all about consistency of are we giving our learners the same conditions to test their competencies? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you for bringing that up. I'll include it in the notes, and hopefully Chuck and BPI can follow up offline. And if I include it in the notes and we get a lot of comments from people, then we'll have even more info. Okay. Lorjan and Janelle, it is, and already in the notes, Rebecca. Thank you for bringing this up. Lorjan and Janelle, you want to give us our updates from IREC?
I was going to have Mary Lawrence kick those off if that's okay.
Oh, Mary Lawrence. Sorry. Yes, I'm
No
so
worries.
sorry, Mary Lawrence. I always think, isn't there a college named after you?
I don't know, maybe. But that's okay. There's a lot of IREC folks on the meeting today, so we're happy to be here. I did want to start off with an introduction of a new staff person on the IREC team. You mentioned her, Kelly. Her name is Dr. Janelle Hills. We're really excited to have Janelle as our Director of Workforce Programs at IREC. She's been with us for probably 2 months now, so she's still new, but has really dived in and is getting up to speed on all of IREC's programs. So Janelle, do you want to say hi so folks can at least hear your voice and share anything about your background?
Sure. Thank you, Mary. I am Janelle Hills, and I have been on board 1 month and 3 days. Thank you for having me. I am coming from the higher ed sector. I was in higher education for 15 years, and for the last 12 years, I finally got my years right. I think I misspoke on another call, but for 12 years I've been leading, developing, implementing, and administering federal work-based and apprenticeship programs in the areas of information technology, pharmacy technician, the plumbers. So I've had a lot of experience in those areas. I am new to energy, so I'm excited to learn and absorb as much as possible. So thank you for having me.
Great. Thanks, Janelle. So Janelle and I will be sort of tag teaming these calls moving forward with Lorjan jumping on periodically when she has specific updates. I also just wanted to throw out there that it's a new year, so to encourage folks to pay attention to the dates of their credentials as well as their annual maintenance reports for their accreditation, and to get in touch with me if they have any questions or need any assistance moving forward with making sure that they're up to date with everything that they need to get in. And so I'll turn it over to Lorjan. I think she has a specific update as well.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. And everyone can feel free to reach out anytime to any of us with credentialing or other IREC questions. Happy New Year, everyone. Good to see some virtual faces or names at least. Wanted to talk specifically about the WAP Innovation FOA that is on the streets right now. There's a concept paper due on January 20th. I believe I've seen Kelly distribute that link already. I know we'll do so with these meeting notes. Just wanted to put the word out. I'm reaching out individually to a couple of you that I know may be looking at this. Just wanted to offer IREX services as a team member. Our intent is not to compete with other WAP entities for this funding, but wanted to let folks know specifically the areas we're looking to be engaged in if folks have project teams they're assembling. Of course, training accreditation. We got that one down. We can certainly help with personnel certification. We've partnered with BPI and NRAIL in the past, as you know, on the energy auditor and other credentials. We also have capacity in the area of outreach about WAP careers, which is mentioned in the FOA, and I know we all agree is really a critical piece. We've got to build the pipeline, especially for diverse workers. And as you may have guessed by hearing Janelle's introduction, we are also becoming increasingly engaged in developing pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs. Since we know there are some nation efforts around the country, certainly want to offer IREX perspective, expertise, and potential team membership for anyone who is working on an effort to pursue that funding. There is also some specific language about solar for the WAP. I know this is something a number of us have been looking at for years. Just for those who don't know, that IREX acronym means the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, although we cover many clean energy technologies right now. Our birthplace was solar. So if anyone's assembling solar teams, please feel free to lean on us, even if it doesn't make sense to include us as team members. If you need referrals for either training or anything, technical assistance on the technology or anything else, please do let us know if we can be of assistance. And I'll put my email in the chat, and thank you, Kelly, for also including in the meeting notes. Thanks a bunch for the time today.
Of course, thank you so much. Yes, do please put that stuff in the chat, and welcome Dr. Hills, and sorry for the oversight, Mary. I'll get better at that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so much changing of the guards going around here. I'm just trying to catch up with the notes real quick. So, okay, we'll put our email in the notes. Thank you. In the chat. Oh, it's Sarah Lawrence College. Thanks, Tom. I knew it was a Lawrence. Well,
that's Mary's sister.
Yeah, exactly. It's a sister college. Okay, so then no one from Derek well, Erica's still out. Derek from DOE couldn't be on, so it falls to me and Caleb to do the update of the guidance that has come out since our last call. Holy cow, this is going to take up our whole call. It was quite a flurry of activity since our last call, so I just wanted to do the highlights of things that, let's see, pull these up. There was a lot of new guidance, but I want to just do a quick run through of the things that I think are important to you all, this audience. And Janelle is one of the newest people to the group. This group it started out as a really kind of technical advisory group back when we could do that kind of thing, and it's kind of morphed into, it still serves the purpose ultimately as a technical advisory group, but it's basically a loose affiliation of our technical staff and training providers and state monitors and really anyone out there in the Weatherization Assistance Program network, and some that have left since they were on for a few years and now they do other stuff, but they still come to keep up with what's going on in the industry. And it serves as really just a really loose affiliation of peers to have questions in front of. And so that's who you're talking to. You're talking to people at the state level, the local level, the national level, private people who work privately, and then our national network of training providers is really well represented here. So just to give you that background, because I realize you just kind of got thrown into this. So where to start with the guidance? We got a lot of memos since our last call. Let me fix my sharing. Just share the whole screen and hope I don't accidentally have something embarrassing up there. A silly cat picture. Okay, so you should be able to see, I just pulled up the list of memos. We got a standard one that's kind of just telling people they can use their funding to go to the National Home Performance Conference in Tennessee. But then the three, which I did include as a note, but I know it was right before the holidays, memos 84, 85, and 86 were all about these great funding opportunities that are available for you. And Jonathan spoke about them a little bit, so I won't go into it. But just if you weren't aware, we have the Sustainable Energy Resources for Consumers, the Community Scale Pilot Projects grant, and then the E&I, or Enhancement and Innovation Funding Opportunity that went out. So just wanted to make sure. When I'm sharing my screen, it's harder to see the chat, Caleb. So if you see any questions, let me know. So those were the big ones. The main takeaway is there's a lot of money out there that is ready to be used to support the network and for really good purposes. I hope that there are so many worthy candidates on this call. I hope you'll go ahead and read these memos. None of them are too long, and most of them advise you, if you have any questions about what's allowed or not, you know, Caleb and I can always kind of weigh in on what we think, but really they recommend you contact your DOE project officer because that's more official. Except the E&I funding opportunity grant is, they anticipated a lot of questions around that, so they set up a separate email. So if you have questions around that, just make sure and look at that memo. And then program notices, this was also a huge flurry of activity of stuff that has been in the works for, as many of you know, years, feels like decades. So this one about the expansion of client eligibility is the result of a lot of work with HUD and basically making it so that it's easier. This doesn't really apply to you all as trainers, not much, but it makes the whole intake process easier. So hopefully that will help when and if whenever influxes of funding come. If somebody is already eligible for means-tested HUD programs, then they kind of automatically are eligible for WAP. The new weatherization grant application came out, which that kind of comes out every year. Then I'll go first, Caleb, if you don't mind, and then I'll hand it to you for the health and safety one. The quality work plan, which has been a huge piece of guidance in the program, you know, it's what started the whole accreditation requirement, the SWS, it codified the quality control inspector requirements and monitoring and all that. Yeah, Caleb, no way. I'll make time for you. I'll talk as fast as I have to. So updating the quality work plan, for both of these, we put together, I think Caleb and I respectively, or me and Caleb respectively, put together like what's new crosswalk documents. So that should be really helpful to you, just to go over the really high level stuff that I wanted to draw your attention to. In the quality work plan, you know, there were just basic shifting of categories and stuff. The big things for you all is the update cycle for field guides has been expanded from every 3 years to every 5 years to align with the updated SWS schedule of 5 years. So that should give everybody a little bit of breathing room. The biggest thing is in the part about inspections, like inspecting the work to meet our quality standards, is that we added in this mentorship option. And I think this would be a great opportunity for you as technical assistants to grantees to help weigh in on what they might look like. So we all are aware of the kind of the logjam or just the issues that we face with the workforce pipeline of we need people doing this work of the energy audits and the quality control inspections, but in order to qualify to do that work, they already need to have so much experience to meet the prerequisites, to sit for the exams so they can do the work. Meanwhile, we have all this work that needs to be done and not enough people out there. So they added in this option, which I heard from a lot of you as we were developing it would be really helpful, so that people can be hired at local service providers or the state level and start going out in the field and collecting the field site data or reviewing the energy modeling software, just helping do part of that work as long as it's under the supervision of a qualified and certified QCI. So hopefully that will help. The guidance has more details about if somebody wants to enact this model, what they need to put together, and it ups the monitoring requirement from 5 to 10%, the same as if it was, the same person doing the initial audit and the final inspection. That's the main thing, though. It clarified that the TNTA plan can span multiple years. Oh, and yeah, this is a big one for you all. It added requirements that grantees conduct some form of training needs assessment. And I know you all are qualified and able and willing to do that, so hopefully this will mean that more people are coming to you for those services, because I think that would be helpful. Any questions about that before I hand it over to Caleb? Okay, I just put the link to this crosswalk document about the quality work plan in the chat if anyone wants it. And rural agencies that only have one person will struggle. Yeah, good point, Tom. I think, that part didn't change. Like if they only had one person to do EA and QCI, that part didn't really change. I think they struggled already. Yeah, I'll think about that. I don't have any suggestions right off the top of my head. If anyone else does, Tom's asking, rural agencies that only have one person who does EA and QCI will struggle with this WPN. Any suggestions? I know that some people contract out certain things. Thank you, Andrew, for the shout out about the training needs assessment. We were very happy about that as well. All right, Tom, hopefully someone will come up with something for you. In the meantime, in the last 7 minutes, I guess we'll have to brainstorm topics some other way. Caleb, you want to give a quick overview? So for those of you who weren't aware, 22-7 came out, health and safety guidance, which is another huge one. I feel like that affects the training network because it overlaps with so much, and they also put together a crosswalk, what's new, and Caleb kept it down to a brief 5 pages. Where should we start, Caleb?
You start with the general section, I think.
Okay.
So I think big pieces for the network to keep in mind. The primary reason for the update was to incorporate the results of the new BEX study, the Building Assessment of Radon Reduction Intervention, the Barrier Expansion Study. The precautionary measures that were recommended by that report were integrated into this as now being a mandatory measures. So previously, the way it was addressed was if you were in radon zones 1 or 2 or 2 or 3, I can't ever remember. Anyway, if you're in the 2 upper tier radon zones, then you were to incorporate precautionary measures. And with the release of that report, DOE determined that to comply with its recommendations, these precautionary measures would be required in all radon zones, regardless of location or testing. And those measures specifically are, I think, vapor barriers over bare earth that is inside of the conditioned space, sump pump covers, and then of course incorporating ASHRAE measures, which we're already doing. So really the only real new thing was the requirement for sump pump covers. Everything else were kind of things we were already doing as a network. It just expands that as a requirement to all radon zones now. There was clarification around what was required, allowable, or prohibited. Previously, the guidance kind of said, well, some things are required, and some are allowable, and some you can't do, but it wasn't very clear how those were laid out. So the table was reorganized to make it real clear that certain things DOE requires you to do, certain things DOE allows you to do, and certain things are prohibited. And that's just in terms of DOE WAP health and safety funds. So if you want to use somebody else's money to do anything, that's up to you, and that's fine. The only thing you're required to do is with DOE health and safety funds, or those required items that are listed. All of the training requirements from 17.7, so if you recall, the table of issues had a training section in every category. All of those have been removed from the health and safety guidance because DOE determined that it was redundant to require grantees to have a T&TA plan and then have you outlining all these training items in your health and safety plan as well. So from a grantee perspective, that simplifies things. It puts the onus on the grantee to include all of that training in their T&TA plan. And it prevents conflict between their plans. Let's think. Other things that will be pertinent to our group here.
What about, Caleb, do you think the heating and cooling thing, I actually don't know if it's included here. Is that a thing?
So as far as the combining or the?
Just that in the previous iteration, the guidance said if it wasn't unsafe combustion equipment, I think had to be like repaired, removed, or rendered inoperable. And in the update, at least for manufactured housing, it was very clear about it has to be repaired or removed. You can't just kind of abandon it there.
Correct, yeah.
I don't think it made it into here. I don't know if that will be a major issue, but it stood out to me because of that question we got.
And then attachment A was done away with from 17.7. It was just integrated into this first issue specific section under air conditioning, heating, and combustion appliances. I believe we eliminated about 5 sections by combining them with other sections that were essentially the same topic. So it's reduced the redundancy some. And then did strengthen the safety inspection of solid fuel appliances. It was kind of already in there previously, but it's tended to get missed in attachment A previously. To just reinforce that, this is a requirement to inspect these items, and also requires the grantees have specific policies and action levels for solid fuel appliances, which was not something that was required previously so much. Just looking through to see what other items. I think most of everything were just minor clarifications around what DOE expected, where there wasn't as much clarity previously. Did add a specific section for water heaters, though combustion appliances were still covered in the combustion appliance section. But there were some issues related to water heaters that would come up regularly in the field. that DOE didn't specifically address previously in health and safety guidance, so that was an added section. And then as far as worker safety, there used to be I think it was injury prevention of workers and occupants previously, and so DOE chose to remove that from that section to separate the occupant injury prevention from worker safety. And essentially with worker safety, just reinforced the concept that DOE requires you to comply with OSHA, EPA, and all the other, required worker safety regulations. There was no need for DOE to further reiterate requirements that were already in place. They just wanted to ensure that that the grantees understood that those were requirements, so that compliance with OSHA in particular and EPA are not optional, and DOE does not offer you an alternative path for compliance to those. So those were items that, as trainers, you might note to the grantees to make sure they are fully meeting OSHA's requirements for training. And of course, EPA, especially in regard to RRP, refrigerant disposal, et cetera, and those sort of things. So overall, there were a number of documents that were created to go along with 22.7, including an updated radon form, sample. There's also a new template for health and safety plans. So if you're working with a grantee in development of their health and safety plan, you'll want to take a look at that. It simplifies matters a lot in terms of DOE is no longer asking you about what you're doing with other people's money. So if you're doing an item that's allowable with LIHEAP funds, that's fine. DOE doesn't need those details. And the template sort of fills itself in terms of if you're going to just concur with DOE guidance, you can check a box and then move on versus having to create, cut and paste a whole lot of stuff. So we're hoping that streamlines things a bit more too. If you have questions about that, please reach out to your project officers. I don't know how many of you are working directly with grantees in development of their health and safety plans, but I think it should streamline that process quite a bit. And I think I've used up all my time.
Yeah, and I know we're over, and so people are having to leave, and know that if you do, no harm, no foul, this is recorded. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, actually,
okay.
I was going to add one thing. I almost forgot that there was a health and safety FAQ added to 22-7 that was updated with some frequent questions that we get regarding the health and safety plans. I think you'll find that useful in your monitoring and assistance to the grantees.
Great. Yeah, it looks like a lot of good resources here. You have the general guidance, the FAQs, optional forms, template, the what's new that we had up, and then additional resources. Who was it now? Andrew was asking if there would be any resources, I've closed that link since, to provided to the grantees or subgrantees regarding the training needs assessment, or will we, I assume you mean we being like training providers, be responsible for that? That's a really good question. We hadn't talked about including something like that. We had kind of a separate toolkit that went along with a different effort that kind of got at that a little bit. But, we do have a lot of resources for training needs assessment that, yeah, why don't you all let me know what you think would be the best way to do it? Like, should we provide it to this group and you all can have it as a toolkit? Should we put it up as like a DOE resource or send it out through NASCAS to the grantee level because they're the ones who will really be doing it? Let me know, or we can talk about that on a future call. I'm bummed that we ran out of time. I really was looking forward. I guess our February call will be talking about helping give me ideas about what you all want to talk about for the rest of the calendar year, or I might figure out a different way, like some kind of survey that I can send out to get it kind of jump started. In the interim, you know, again, Happy New Year, everyone. I'm so happy to still have you all around. And if at any time you think of topics that you think would be good to cover on these calls over the next 11 months, please shoot me an email and I'll figure out a way to fit it into the considerations. So take care. Here's to more joy and what should we wish for the new year, guys? Coziness? Health? Peace? Joy and peace. Here's for more joy and peace in 2022 than you got in 2021. Joy and peace. Thanks, Bill. What was that? More climate change action. Heck yeah. And good health. Cheers. Cheers to all of that. We don't need to limit ourselves. All right. Talk to you all soon. Bye, everyone.